Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the board meeting for tonight. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Let's say the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we please have a moment of silence for silent reflection? Thank you. Roll call and quorum check, please.
Mr. Rashka?
Here.
Mr. Leary?
Here.
Mrs. Karapolsky? Mrs. Wilson?
Here.
Mrs. Dubard?
Present.
Mr. Schaefer?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Miano. Could I have an approval of the board meeting minutes from 1/12/21, please?
I'll make the motion, Heather Dubard.
And a second, please?
I'll second it. Tom Raska.
I have a motion by Mrs. DeBard, a second by Mr. Raska. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Board trustee reports. I'd like to start with Mr. Raska.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Mrs. DeBard?
So the only thing that I have to report is I attended the update on the construction for Union East with a few of our fellow board members. It's really amazing to see the progress and the much needed space and how it looks so amazing. It really does. And the process that it's going through, and they explained to us like how it doesn't look like things are going like, very quickly in a very fast pace, but there's so much that goes into it in a single day. Like one joint takes 8 hours for them to complete. So it was amazing to see. I'm so excited and talking about like all the updates and, trying to figure out what our wish list is going to be is pretty cool. So we saw the Union East pool. That was amazing. It was really nice and much needed. So that's all I have to report. You're muted, Renee.
Thank you very much. It is exciting. Mr. Leary?
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer?
Just adding on what Mrs. Dubard said, had the opportunity to do the walkthrough of the progression of the of Union East there. It was nice for them to take the time for seeing us from the bolts up and where they're at and what direction we're going. So it was very exciting to see it at that time and excited to see the final product.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I need to report on a couple of things. I attended the ECASB Super Avail. It was well attended and, for a Zoom program, they've been a lot of people from different districts coming. So it's been nice to see. We're familiar with that Super Avail, so I really don't have to tell you that much about it. I also attended the DigiStream seminar, which was really interesting. It was from a company that, of course, is called DigiStream, and they do surveillance for employees, mostly related to workers' comp cases. So it was really, really interesting. A lot of questions were asked by people in regards to how it related to our districts and how districts are using that. She had a lot of really good information, really showed us different stories and scenarios and things that happen out there. It's pretty interesting. To see what really goes on. I also attended an advocacy training on a Saturday morning. A lot of different legislative tips, and it was a run through for people that really have, it was for everybody, but it touched base on people that haven't really been involved, so they knew what to do, what to ask, what to be involved in. what you ask our politicians and our legislators and people, our senators and our representatives, how you can reach out to them, different things that are coming up for pushes moving forward to really try to get the funding back in our school districts. Then we went over some strategies, and it was given by Jill O'Malley and the legislative team, her committee. They know so much, and they're really so really good to work with. I do hope that you guys know and maybe send her a well wish. Jill O'Malley, Dr. Jill O'Malley is leaving her position with Erie County Association of School Boards. She's moving up to be a board member in the town where she lives in Kenton. So that's exciting for her. She's really well liked by everybody out in the community as far as our political people. And she's really worked hard and made a way for herself. So we wish her well, and we're really going to miss her. She's become a very good friend to me as well. And she was a really great colleague and person to work with. So I know Dave's going to miss her, and we all are too. Then I attended Rick Tim's on February 4th through ECASB, a state of our state, basically, of what our governor is handing out to us. It was interesting, eye-opening. It's alarming, to say the least. I was kind of almost in a little bit of a panic state when it was over with. But what I really, really loved that he did this year was he took every single person that was signed up for it. He broke our districts down in the formula and the way that things are changing with the COVID relief money, and explained how we're getting this, and then how money's taken away from state aid. And then it looks like we're really bridging a gap, but then next year, what happens to you? So a PDF is being sent to me. I have not received it yet. When I get that, I'm going to print all the copies out for everybody so that each of the board members can have it. I'm going to share it with our superintendent and our assistant superintendent and Caitlin. And I want to be able to have a period where we can ask questions if we want to, and kind of see where we're at. I did already write down some things that I wanted to talk to Mrs. Tokarczyk about. And just because, the struggle is real, and COVID really put everybody behind the 8 ball, in addition to things that we've already been dealing with, the gap elimination, foundation aid, all that stuff, it comes into play. So it will be really a good thing for us to have and be able to go over. So I've been busy, and I appreciate the fact that the district allows me to attend these and to build on my knowledge of things that are going on out there. Okay, so let's go right to administrative updates if we could, please. I'd like to start, if we could, with Mrs. Mitchell. Hi, Mrs. Mitchell.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome.
How are
Good to
you?
see you.
Good to see you as well.
Thank you.
And it's nice to be able to meet with you this evening and just kind of give an update as to where we are at Union East. So we recently were at the semester break, which was our parents' chance to change from hybrid learners to remote learners. And we are very excited to have almost 125 more students back hybrid than we had in the first semester. So we are just about at 2/3 in person and 1/3 fully remote for Union East. So I think that we were excited to have our students back in the building and to be able to, we did have some teachers that were switching from fully remote back to hybrid teachers just because we had so many students that were switching as well. So it's been a bit of a transition over the past few weeks at Union East, but I think everyone has taken it in stride. And our teachers that have transitioned back to hybrid are very excited to be in the classroom with their kiddos. So as far as learning at Union East, we are in the process right now of conducting running records. We are transitioning to the units of study running record, which is a little different than the Fountas and Pinnell ones that we have done in the past, but will directly align with the units of study, which is where we're moving towards next year in completely. So we had some professional development for our teachers at the end of January, and we decided to wait to administer the running records until the switch of the semester break, so that the teachers that would be working with the students for the second half of the school year were the ones that were administering the assessment. So that way they have the data and have the firsthand knowledge of the data. I think it really is most valuable when it happens that way. So our teachers are administering those completely. We will, and I'm hoping to have an update for you at the March meeting, because we're still in the process of gathering that data. We did finish our mid-year STAR assessment at all of our grade levels, and we were very excited to see growth at each grade level from our September and our November administration to January. So our students are working very hard, as are our teachers. Part of our SEP plan that I had presented in December had dealt with some math PD on topics that were going to help to align our entire school building to have a common language so that vertically we were aligned. And in January, we had a number talks PD on how to conduct a number talk both in person and remotely. And what a number talk is just building our students' fluency so they can perhaps be given a number such as 13, and we're going to count by fives. So the students go around the classroom and the teacher records it. They kind of talk about the patterns, and then that's obviously at a lower level, and then they move up from there. But it really is building that fluency and automaticity in our students. And tomorrow we will have our second part of our math PD, and that's being presented by Mrs. Jen Lewis and Mrs. Rachel Burke, two of our math chairperson and our math AIS provider in the building. And we will be presenting on a CUBE strategy, which is a problem solving strategy. So again, it will help to build that vocabulary for our teachers and for our students so that they are vertically aligned as they go through the grade levels at Union East. Our ELA department, in addition to the PD on running records, they are meeting tomorrow actually, and we are going to be doing something very similar to what we're doing in math on a retell strategy. So we've identified the need based on the data from our assessments that our retell as a building is something we need to focus on. So developing a strategy that we can adopt as a whole building and then keep that consistent grade level to grade level, we're hoping will really make an impact for our students. In addition to that, both of those PDs, we will be having some virtual galleries of teachers sharing how they're using it in their classrooms, which then other teachers can borrow and use. So though we may not always be able to meet in person, we have access to seeing it in action in their classrooms, which I think is really very powerful. I think for myself to see classroom action, the PD that was provided by our own teachers in January, and have the turkey and use it in the classrooms in the weeks following really shows that they find that valuable and useful in their class. And I think that's when we're doing it ourselves, it really has so much value. As far as our whole child, we continue to celebrate our students and our Warrior Way winners on a bi-weekly basis. We have been throughout the months of December, January, recognizing our families as well, because we know that our families are celebrating our Warrior Way students just as much. And we will be moving into a more individual student recognition after the February break. We have also recently developed our attendance committee, and it's being chaired by our school counselor, Mrs. Kristen Dudas. And we're examining our attendance. It is a little tricky this year. We are looking at those absences that are non-COVID related. So we're looking at where are those patterns that it's not related to any quarantines or sickness, but really of other reasons, and how can we, as this committee, has a three-tiered approach to really make an impact for our students to increase their attendance. And finally, with regards to 21st century, we are seeing our teachers most consistently using our Smart Learning Suite, which is some software that allows them to interact with the students in live time in a remote fashion, so they can kind of hop onto students' workboard and see their progress as they're doing it. So it allows that opportunity for our teachers to provide feedback on a much more immediate basis than they do something and hand it in and then get feedback. So it's more on a live time. And we also are using Jamboard. Our third and fourth graders are getting quite proficient at using Jamboard, which also allows they can interact with it in more live time. We also have just finished our pilot and are going to be continuing using our Freckle program, which is something that has been used very widely over the last few months to have additional skill practice in ELA and math. So our teachers are able to assign assignments on certain standards to reinforce what they're doing in the classroom. And the students, as well as our parents, have expressed how much they enjoy the program and find it beneficial at home as well as school. So I think that is really a nice tool to have at our fingertips. That's all I have.
That's all you have. You are so busy. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Mitchell?
I have a comment. Melissa, you might want to share your, with the board individually, your parent conference, the PowerPoints or the Google presentations. They were just phenomenal by your teachers of what students are actually learning. And I think you'd be pleasantly surprised with those presentations by our grade level teachers.
Yeah, that's a great point. Our teachers all developed each grade level virtual curriculum information to give an idea of what an end of the year student at each grade level should know and be able to do. And our teachers, they're virtually done. They'll be on our website, but I will gladly share with those. They really did a very nice job. I think they'll be a very valuable tool for our families.
Thank you. I'd really like to see them. Thanks so much for that. Anybody else? Okay, let's go to Mr. Cullinan, please.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Hi, Mr. Cullinan. How are you?
Good, and you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. We're ready when you are.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'll talk a little bit about what's going on here at the middle school. Starting off with priority one and improving student learning. In January, we had a BOCES PD, professional development, that was geared towards teachers and providing them the opportunity for some training on synchronous instruction for all of our faculty. And so all faculty was included in that, and they were there for a majority of the Wednesday, and they took part in a couple of different workshops with Daniel Lynch from BOCES, and took a lot of different things out of it, which we were very happy to see them involved and so engaged in what they were talking about. They talked about number of different strategies, and teachers were actually able to share with him, Daniel Lynch, and each other the different things they have done on their own, which is in addition to what he was talking to them about. So we have a lot of things going on in terms of different offerings for our synchronous learning. And so we're excited to see where that goes as we continue on down the road, depending on how that looks in the next few weeks or so. We've also been able to do here at the middle school is, as we continue to provide as much outside professional development as we can, we want to make sure it's quality. We want to continue to build upon our teachers and build their capacity as much as possible, and give them different platforms with one another to, share their expertise and really utilize one another. I think the collaboration with one another is a huge piece. We also have our data protocol for our SET plan that we're finishing up our math portion by Friday, and our ELA portion meets again tomorrow, and they will also be done by Friday. So that's good to get some information. We're putting a major focus on trying to really incorporate our data into driving the instruction here at the middle school. We obviously have a lot of work that we need to do academically, which is first and foremost here. And we want to make sure that we continue to lead our teachers down the right path. And so as we continue to use data to drive our instruction, I think we'll eventually see the results we're looking for, top to bottom, from 5th all the way up to 8th grade. In terms of the whole child, similar to what Mrs. Mitchell shared about some students coming back from full remote, we also received a big jump in our attendance. We have about roughly 90 total students from 5th to 8th grade, that have returned to school in a hybrid format. It's great to see a lot of the kids back. They came back, and just to watch them walk around and see their friends and just get excited for the 2 days is great. I know a lot of the teachers are excited to have them back in the building and able to talk with them and see them in person. And it's kind of just in terms of just getting back to some type of normalcy, it's just great to have that opportunity for the students. Obviously, even with those 90, we still have a big chunk of kids that are full remote, which we fully understand. And we'll continue to try to provide them the best synchronous instruction we can moving forward until we're able to get back into school full. We also have a new program that our Student Services Department, AKA our guidance counselors, started. We started a college and career readiness course that they push into their classrooms, other than their social skills classes that they've done. And this course provides our students an opportunity to kind of learn a little more in depth about study skills, goal setting, high school ahead, coming up down the road, interest inventory, career research, and financial literacy, just some life skills type things that they can really utilize to help them moving forward. So we're excited about that, and our counseling staff and our student services center has done a great job making sure to focus on those things. And then lastly here, in terms of the third priority, we're trying to create opportunities for our students with 21st century skills. And one of the ways we're trying to do that is specifically critical thinking and collaboration. And what we're doing is we're continuing to have our teachers implement lessons and planning their lessons, focusing on higher level questioning and total participation techniques to ensure that our students are actively engaged as in-person learners and virtual as well. So we want to really make sure that that's continuing as we go down the road here, not knowing how long this will last, but we want to make sure we're reaching all of our students as best we can. We also have something really exciting to share about a new club that was started by Mrs. Heidi Maloney, a reading teacher here at the middle school. She started a book club for 7th and 8th graders. And they meet and they chat and they talk a little bit about lunches and other things like that. But most importantly, they're getting to interact with one another, talk about books, kind of discuss things, and just meet in another format to kind of get together. Obviously, we're limited what we can do in terms of meeting regularly, but this book club that was totally on Mrs. Maloney, and kudos to her for creating this and getting it going, really gives the students an opportunity to talk to one another, to interact, to work with Mrs. Maloney a little bit more, and it's something that we're really excited about. This started on January 20th, and it goes for a half hour, and students from both grades are able to pop in and just join different discussions during the lunch break and kind of just talk about things in general. So it's just another great opportunity. So we're excited where we are here at the middle school. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that we still need to improve upon and work on, and that's where we're headed. But we're excited, like I said, where we are, and looking forward to moving forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cullen, and thanks to Mrs. Maloney for reaching out to the kids to do that. And I'm sure that, during this time of COVID, when so many kids can't be together, that's a nice way to, interact with each other, with a teacher, read a book, and have discussions. I really like that idea. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah,
Thank you for.
Yeah, when she talked about that, she was really excited about getting that going and reaching out to the kids. And
Do you have?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you have any idea how many kids do it, or is it just whoever wants to, like you said,
it's open to everybody in 7th and 8th grade. And I don't know the exact numbers, what she's had so far, but she's pretty excited about what she's had.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all your hard work.
Absolutely. When we had our parent-teacher conferences, then I'll get off here for you, Ms. Wilson.
Okay, thanks.
We had our parent-teacher conferences, and the teachers couldn't rave enough about the parent participation. And I think a lot of it was easier for our parents and able to do it virtually. They didn't have to come in person, obviously, so they were able to just kind of log on when it was available. So that's something we're looking at maybe even, in the future years to do, even when we're back in full capacity, because I think it provides a better opportunity. And then our staff here at the middle school took it a step further, and then we reached out to additional families just to kind of check in to see how people were doing, how kids were doing, and just trying to keep that line of communication open to make sure to let them know that we're available whenever they need something here at the middle school.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks. I thought about that with this going on with this COVID and parent-teacher conferences, and the fact that sometimes, in the past we've gotten good turnouts, but you don't get sometimes a great turnout or a better turnout when people have more opportunity to log on when their time frame is available to them. So it's good that we had you probably had more participation than usual. And that's nice to hear. And thanks to all our teachers for going, above and beyond to reach out to those kids. I appreciate it. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Cullinan? No? Okay, thank you. We have Mr. Zip. Thank you, Mr. Cullinan. Stay safe and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks. We have Mr. Zip, who I know, Mr. Zip, you had a vacation day today, so I appreciate the fact that you are here. Thank you.
No problem. Good evening, Board of Ed, Mrs. Morris, Mrs. Miano. Hopefully everyone is well. I'm gonna have to come up with an excuse to go first every week because Pat stole my thunder. I don't know what to say now. Only kidding. So usually I do it in the order of the priorities, which I'm just gonna kind of deviate a little today. My tagline has been character, curriculum, and community connect since I've been the principal, and they fit in. Obviously, the whole child's character and learning would be in the curriculum, 21st century skills. So, and the only reason I'm going to deviate tonight is just so you get an understanding where we're at. We really felt at the high school that we wanted to hit the reset button. You spoke earlier, Mrs. Wilson, that the COVID has been crazy for many people, teachers, families, and we're really trying to hit the reset for kids. So under the character part, we didn't have our true character program this year based on, everything we had financially. So we put something together and I wasn't overly proud of it. So I started it over this month, and the word is energetic. And I'm really pushing everyone to push some energy back into what we do. And again, get back to what we've always done that we got away from, because since September, there's been so many changes for administration, staff, teachers, kids, that we feel like we've been all over the place. So we're reinstituting our character and running with that. We have guidance counselors calling many students. We started our effort tracker where teachers mark down every single student's effort, and I make global connect calls every Monday to certain groups. Some parents get more calls than others. Some weeks you get them, some weeks you don't, but really trying to hone in on our students and what they are doing. In the curriculum part, we're in this unknown of Regents examinations. And with the unknown, we have to take the position that, of course, there are going to be Regents examinations because we haven't heard any different. So teachers are plugging along, trying to fit in that curriculum in the typical synchronous, or in the synchronous model that we have right now, which is atypical from a school year because of the amount of time that they have with the students. So they're pushing along with that, trying to make sure they're hitting all the standards. They're prioritizing by their state standards, and I think they're doing a good job with that. But like anything else, that they're looking to see how can they steal more time. So that's on our agenda right now of what we're looking at. Along with under curriculum would fit what we're doing with PD. Last Wednesday, our teachers all presented. We made administrative groups. We had 4 groups. All the teachers were presenting to one another. We've been delivering platforms, and under the DSIP plan, we have certain tools and strategies that we're working on with our state consultant. And the teachers are actually putting those together and sharing with each other as they're the pros. So we had that last Wednesday. We have another one tomorrow morning at 7:30 in the morning. And it's actually exciting because a lot of the teachers start to have a lot of conversation. And it takes them to new places, and places that, us as administrators who aren't in the classroom, we can't take them on a daily basis. We can give them the tools and the avenue to share, and that's what we try to do and support them, and it's going very well. Along with the curriculum, we made a building level decision, which is important to, as you know, our policy in the first quarter has been the lowest is a star 55. And what we decided to do with the COVID experience and the difficulty that many students are having, which is the data that I have, and it's not a guess. The data that we've been pulling is part of our reset is for the second quarter. The lowest grade we gave was a 55 again, and some people like it, some people don't. But as professionals, it's a decision you make as a human being, and looking at our students. I feel it was a great decision to make to try to re-energize, reactivate, and give some of our students hope. You see a 20 on your report card, mathematically you can't pass. That can be pretty devastating to throw in the towel. I was asked, well, what if a kid did nothing and you gave him a 55, Scott? Well, we did, but guess what? If he does something and we re-energize him and he gets a 75 in the third quarter and a 75 in the fourth quarter, he can salvage some of his credits towards graduation. And ultimately, isn't that what we want, is to re-energize, reactivate, and engage students? So we're hoping that this works, but just giving them a 55 or giving them a star 55 and allowing them to make up those grades, those assignments isn't enough. And that's why we had the effort tracker, reaching out to parents, reaching out to the kids, and guidance counselors. Along with, I got to back up to character, something that I think is important because we talk about the social emotional, the students as well. Our PPS staff took on a initiative for me of meeting with every single teacher individually. They divvied up the teachers, figured out who they had their best relationships with, and gave teachers an opportunity to sit down and chat. And it didn't have to be about education, because in all this, what gets lost sometimes is our staff members that are burning the candle at both ends and trying to adjust to a whole new teaching. And part of the reset button was to, revitalize our staff. And a lot of people in the conversation thanking the PPS staff members for calling them down. Now, they haven't finished everyone, but they did the majority. And it's just nice. And, we have a couple in particular that I've had conversations with, and it's just nice when they walk in now. It feels like it's a whole different person, and I can see it on their face. I can see it on their expression. I can see it on their body. So it's really nice. And I'm proud that our PPS staff did that, because it's not always the easiest to call down another adult or a colleague and have a heart to heart and, open yourself up. So I'm really proud of what they're doing there. Also, a new program that is in place that is being run by Mr. Fata and Mr. Hanford is the peer mentoring program. I don't want to say it's being run by them, all the assistant principals, but at the high school level, those two assistant principals are running it. And we're really excited because our high school students are the peer mentors. So they're going to be reaching out to students 8th grade, K to 8, and they're going to be, you've heard of big brother programs or brother to brother, sister to sister programs, but a mentoring program that Mr. Fata and Mr. Hanford are part of. And it all falls under the DSIP plan, which I talked about earlier, in regards to our strategies that we're implementing. So it's really exciting. We're hitting the reset button, going to start moving forward. We feel like we've been kind of going lateral. You feel like you're moving forward and the next change comes. We got 196 more students in the high school, which is great. Mr. Hickson's obviously very busy with the introduction of athletics now. I mean, I know we had them, but there's more going on. So that's keeping him very busy and making sure we're following protocols and all the paperwork that needs to be done. Mr. Ridzik and Mr. Mowers are currently working on, Mr. Ridzik already gave me his for the jazz band. What we're going to be doing with the jazz band, socially distancing and getting those students that are in the arts in. And right now I'm tinkering with the idea of getting some type of school play off the ground. Doesn't have to be huge. It can be small, but something where the kids can participate. And really part of that, this is all part of that reset button, changing what we do academically and start moving those grades up and engaging more students, getting kids involved in the arts, athletics, and really try to find some normalcy, because those of us at the high school really think if we get them engaged and they're here, we're going to see our grades go back to where they were and get this data to shift for us. And last but not least, Lori Ferry, who is the head of our guidance department, we had parent-teacher conferences as well. She came across a great tool that was also used in West Seneca, PTC Fast. It's just a website, but it allowed parents to log on. It was very simple. I mean, there's always a little hiccup when you're using technology, and some people understand better than others, but pick your time, log on. The teachers there, the teachers loved it. If we had more time, I would share my screen. I gave a survey to the teachers. We have a survey going out to the parents, but they loved it because it was much more efficient. And for our families, COVID or not, this might be the way to go. We can still offer in person because sometimes people like to have that personal touch, but accessibility and just the ease of having a family or working multiple jobs, really nice for the families to be able to log in and communicate with their child's teacher. So I know I was long-winded, but we're hitting the reset button at the high school, and hopefully it's going to bring us where we want to go. Any questions?
Mr. Zip, that's wonderful. I want to tell you, I really like this piece about the staff meeting with each other. I know all too often, I mean, I'm sure we all do, COVID aside, on a normal basis, how nice it is to have somebody reach out to you and say, how are you doing? You know, let's sit down and have a talk. Sometimes that's all you need, just to make you feel like, oh, you know, there's somebody that cares about how I am or wants to help me with something, or just maybe gives me a little bit of direction. You can feed off of each other like that. And I really love that idea. I like the idea of the reset. I think that's fantastic. And the grade, the 55. And because you know what, kids, you know, this is a whole new world of learning for them. Some kids are, you know, struggle when they're learning online and they're at home and remote. And we have to be a little, like you said, you have to be human about that too, you know. I also say thank you, Mr. Hickson, because I know how hard this athletic piece is and how hard things are going. Kids want to be in sports. Parents want kids to be in sports. We all want kids to be in sports, but we also have to make sure that we do the right thing. So I appreciate that. I know that that's a work in progress and it continues to change. And I like the peer mentoring program a lot because kids learn a lot from each other, and being able to have that other person kind of guide them along. I appreciate everything. Stay the course, do the best you can. And anybody else have anything they'd like to say to Mr. Zip?
I do. I loved the parent teacher conference this year. I absolutely loved it. And actually, it was my first one ever being requested by a teacher. And it was really nice because I was at work, so I didn't have to take like any special time or make any special scheduling issues or anything. I literally told my job I'm taking a break. Took 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes, and had the conference and went right back to work. So it was really, really great. So thank you to Miss Ferry for finding that, because it was really, really simple and easy. So
Yeah, and thank you, Heather. I wanted to ask you, and I didn't know if this was the platform. So thank you for bringing that up, because you know, you mentioned how, just another thing to add, and I know, you know, everyone's working hard, but I guess this is my time to brag about the staff. But 67 different global connects went out. We did one global connect for every single teacher that was specifically for parents. So Mrs. Dubard's message might have said, you know, this message is specifically for your child. Mr. Zip is your biology teacher and would like to meet you for parent-teacher conferences. So each teacher had their own, and there'd be like 10, 15, 20, 30 kids that got that message about that specific teacher. And it was a lot of legwork that was put into that to have 67 messages go out on Blackboard Connect. But it was worth it because it was by far the most number of parents we had attend parent-teacher conference.
Yeah, it was great. So
Good.
Thank you for that.
No, thank you.
Mr. Zip and or Mr. Wright, you might want to comment about, you know, there can be no spectators for athletics, but you guys have been working really hard to bring live stream to our events.
Mr. Wright, I think you should chime in because you're the technical. I'm a worker bee when it comes to that. He knows all the ins and outs of that.
So actually, Mr. Hickson, he took the opportunity to survey all of the Erie County school districts and to see what the different options are for live streaming. And Mr. Zip, working with Mr. Malley and Mr. Hickson, have devised a way that we can really stream 2 or 3 events if necessary, to be able to create an opportunity for all families and parents, regardless if you're Cheektowaga Central families or even the visiting school, to be able to at least watch their child compete. It may not be perfect. It's a work in progress. And again, Mr. Zip's being generous by letting me talk. But he's also exploring ways of how do we long-term make this a course? How do we get students involved? and really make it a student-run production. So really kudos to the high school of how do we allow our parents to be able to enjoy watching their children compete. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. That's nice to hear. I really like that. Anybody else have anything they want to ask? Comments, questions? Thanks, Mr. Zip. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you and have a good night.
You have a good rest of your night. Stay safe. Okay, so we're going to move forward. I love these administrative updates. I really do. They are so informative, and they really give us the opportunity to talk to our administrators and, what's going on, find out what's going on, and questions and comments. So thank you, Mrs. Morris, for that. I really enjoy it. Okay, citizens open forum. There isn't anyone here to address the board. There is no attorney's report tonight. Consent agenda. Is there anything that anybody would like to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, can I have a motion, please, for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
And a second, please?
I'll second Heather Dubard.
I have a motion by Mr. Leary, a second by Mrs. Dubard. Any discussion on any of these? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Superintendent report, Mrs. Morris.
Good evening, everyone. First order of business does not require board action. It's just there for your perusal. Are 7 paid leaves of absences per the current CCTA contract. Your approval, however, is recommended for the following resignation: Adam Garbaz from his position as laborer, pending the approval of his new appointment.
Can I have a motion, please, for the resignation of Adam Garbaz from his position of laborer?
I'll make the motion, Heather Dubard.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on this? I have a motion by Mrs. Dubard, a second by Mr. Leary. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried.
And your approval is recommended for the coaching position for modified boys basketball, and Coach Dave Ryan would like to take that position.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, please, for Mr. Ryan for the coaching position of modified basketball? And a second, please?
I'll second it, Tom Rasko.
I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mr. Raska. Is there any discussion on this matter? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
We do have our first addendum, and that's the approval of an additional substitute teacher, Michelle Hovey.
Could I have a motion, please, for a substitute teacher, Michelle Hovey?
I'll make a motion, Thomas Rasko.
And a second, please?
I'll second Heather Dubard.
I have a motion by Mr. Raska, a second by Mrs. Dubard. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Board related.
Board related policy. There are 2 on a first read. No action needs to be taken for policies 3420, non-discrimination and anti-harassment, and 3421, Title IX, and sex discrimination. Those are first reads for you.
Thank you.
We did at the January 12th meeting review the following policies. Do you wish to adopt, modify, discard, or hold for additional discussion? And there are 4 policies: record retention, 5670, 5140, administration of the budget, 5672, information security, breach and notification, and 6550, leaves of absences.
Okay, so I would actually like to adopt these policies. We did, this is on second reading, and unless there's anybody that has anything they'd like to discuss. No? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to adopt this. Could I have a motion, second, please?
I'll second Heather Dubard.
Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Wilson, a second by Mrs. Dubard, I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, we have a policy we'd like deleted because the district does participate annually and has for many years in the community eligibility provision, and that is policy 5660, meal charging and the prohibition of meal shaming. It's not an issue for us because all of our children receive free breakfast and lunch.
Okay. Can I have a motion, please, to get rid of policy 5660, please?
I'll make the motion, Heather Dubard.
And a second, please?
I'll make the second. Kevin Leary?
Okay, I have a motion and a motion by Mrs. DeBarda, a second by Kevin Leary. Is there any discussion on this by anybody? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Attached for your review is a list of potential election officials for this year's budget trustee vote, indicating the election officials from the past 3 years. Do you have any additions, changes, or feedback?
I'd like to actually keep the election officials that we've had. And as long as that's okay with everybody. Most of the people that we always have are the same people for the past, I don't even know how many years. So can I have a motion, please? Oh, it's for our review. We don't need a motion.
Correct.
Is there any discussion on this matter? Anyone? No? Okay, thanks, Mary.
Okay. So nominations for the BOCES Board of Education. At this time, 1 letter of interest was received. The board can act to nominate tonight or hold off until the March meeting if additional letters of interest are received. They will be presented to you on the next agenda. So you can nominate more than one, so you can do that tonight or you can wait.
Okay, so I have to tell you that on the official nomination letters telling about nominations, myself and Mr. Caven are on there, and both of our letters were mailed out. So I know we have his, but I don't know why we don't have mine yet. So that's interesting. But there is just him and I, and we're both running for our same seats. So being that I'm on there, I don't know that I can make the decision. I would like to leave it up to you as the board members to decide what you want to do. Okay? Anybody?
You can make a motion tonight for the one, and then as we get them, it'll be presented again. And you can
Okay, so can we make a motion for Ed Caven, please? I would like
I'll
to
make the motion, Heather Dubard.
Okay.
Oh, then I'll second.
No, okay. So I have a motion by myself, a second by Mrs. DeBard. Any discussion on that? It's for a BOCES trustee for a 3-year term. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, and then for the 21-22 school year, because as you know, we start working in 2 school years, your approval is recommended for the anticipated UPK program, the full day for 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds, pending approval of state funds.
Could I have a motion for a 2021 UPK program, please?
I'll make that motion, Ed Schaefer. I'll second it, Tom Raska.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mr. Raska. Any discussion on this? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Business related.
Kate?
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Mary, I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see all of you.
You too.
I'm going to start with our budget development discussion and update. Tonight I'm going to go through our revenue estimates, and the biggest parts of our revenue are our tax cap calculation and our state aid. And I'm going to go through some highlights of our expenditures to date. I'll highlight our funding priorities that we've discussed so far, and I'll talk about some of our material budget items that information we know as of right now. So as you're familiar, the biggest part of our revenue picture is our local tax cap, and our local tax cap is a multi-step calculation that's based on several different factors, and I've highlighted here those factors that we know right now. For next year, our tax base growth factor is just over 1. So the tax base growth factor is the part of the calculation where the state looks at how much our taxable assessment base has grown relative to the rest of New York State. And so being just over 1, that means our taxable base has grown relative to New York State, just over the average growth. The next component of the tax cap calculation is our allowable levy growth factor. This is the number that's the same statewide. This is either every year, it's either the lower of the consumer price index or 2%. And so this year, since CPI is much lower than 2%, the factor is 1.23%. So that factors into our tax cap calculation also. The fourth biggest component of our tax cap calculation is the capital levy exclusion. That's where we raise funds to pay for capital expenditures minus any state aid we receive on those capital expenditures. So it's our debt service minus our building aid. That number again for the 21-22 school year, we're projecting at $910,000, which is the same as the year before. And the last major component of our tax cap calculation is an exclusion for the teacher's retirement system or employee's retirement system. And this year there is no allowable exclusion. This exclusion is only allowable in years where ERS and TRS rates increase more than 2%, which they are not in the 21-22 school year. So that is not a part of our tax cap calculation in 21-22. These factors together taken into account in the formula puts our allowable levy increase at just about $745,000 or 3%. The next biggest component of our revenue picture is state aid. And this is what Renee was speaking to a little bit earlier, how there are significant changes in the state aid picture in 21-22 versus what we've seen in any prior year. So I've presented here what this current year looks like and what next year looks like based on our district's state aid runs. I'd like to point out just some big changes year over year in how these aid runs are presented and calculated. The first is what the state is not, the executive run is calling services aid. In the past, we have had BOCES aid, textbook aid, transportation aid. There's been 11 categories of aid that are, aid is generated based on reimbursement of expense. So in year one, if we spend X amount on transportation, we're aided on that in the subsequent year. In this executive budget run, the executive runs propose eliminating those reimbursement-based aids and lumping them all together into this service aid category. And then service aid is proposed to increase on a almost flat basis in years going forward, rather than based on our reimbursements of what we're actually spending. So the implications for that in the future could be really big for districts if this proposal stands. That would mean if we face a year with big unanticipated costs, such as transportation, that the district isn't reimbursed those big increases, but rather our aid stays basically level and we have to bear the brunt locally of what those large expense increases would be. Another big change to this state aid run that you'll note from prior years is the STAR payment that's included now in state aid runs that never appeared on state aid runs before. So districts are reimbursed for the STAR tax credit that is available to local taxpayers. That's never been shown as a component of our state aid calculation before, and it is now here. The governor is proposing showing that as part of our state aid runs. And the last major adjustment is what I've highlighted in red, new for 21-22, the COVID-19 supplemental stimulus money, and then the local district funding adjustment. The executive budget run assumes that New York State will receive at least $6 billion in federal aid in the coming months. And so that is where our COVID-19 supplemental stimulus, that $2.6 million you see, that's where that money comes from. The catch is 2 lines above, it's pulled out in what's called the local district funding adjustment. So we are receiving COVID-19 supplemental stimulus funds, and then our state aid is reduced in an equal amount. The big question, which Renee talked about a little bit earlier, is what happens in 22-23 if there is no more COVID-19 stimulus money? Do we face a funding cliff then in New York State? And are we then looking at a $2.6 million revenue shortfall in the subsequent years? So for the 21-22 school year, our total aid package you can see is just over $22 million, which adjusted for all these aid changes is a 2.3% increase over our 2021 picture. That increase is driven largely by that change in services aid. The district had projected higher in transportation aid and BOCES aid for the 21-22 school year. And that is where our anticipated state aid increase is largely coming from. I'd like to turn our attention now to the other half of our budget, or our expenditures. You'll recall in our budget calendar that we presented in October, we had outlined a timeline for our internal, the work we were doing as an administrative team to prepare our expenditure budget. And so just to highlight or to recap what we've done so far here for you briefly, in January, we held individual administrative team meetings and then had follow-up on those to prepare individual functional area budgets and building-based budgets. Over the course of a couple days in January, the central office team met with Erie One BOCES to work on our Erie One BOCES participation numbers and what we plan on spending through Erie One BOCES next year. And in the beginning of February, we held human resources and staffing review and meetings at the building levels. To continue to highlight our expenditure budgets, our superintendent has laid out for us our district level priorities, the three priorities that you're all very familiar with. And what we have done in terms of our budgeting process is to then link our funding priorities with our specific district priorities. So under priority one, the items that we are funding to work towards meeting our priorities are we're continuing work with the shared, continuing our work with our shared tech integrator through Erie One BOCES. We're funding professional development. We're funding classroom libraries, and we're investing in instructional software. The Freckle software Mrs. Mitchell spoke about earlier when she gave her presentation, and also continuing STAR testing. Under priority two, we are funding CPI training, character education programs and mentoring, and more professional development. Under priority three, we are working on Chromebook replacement plans and classroom devices and interactive displays to support our one-to-one initiative. Other highlights from our expenditures, these are material items, the bigger ticket items that have material impacts on our budgets. We anticipate some increases in special education, private placement, and BOCES tuition. We also anticipate increases in employee benefit rates, although not at the not to the highest that we have seen as of late. So the employee retirement system increase is estimated at about 1.6%. The TRS system increase is about 0.5%, and our health insurance increase is yet to be determined, but we are anticipating that that also will be manageable in this year's budget, given the information we have from our health insurance carrier right now. Our current CSEA contract is under negotiation, so we have made estimates for that in our expenditure budget. Our transportation contracts, which I will discuss later in the business item of the agenda, have been extended at 1.3%, which is great news for us to not have to go to bid and have to worry about potentially increasing double-digit percent depending on how the bids come back. So that's great news for our budget to extend at 1.3%. Our debt service expense is increasing slightly, 7.5% for taking on the Union East project, and an estimate of all salaries and wages district-wide estimated increase at 3.5%. So where we go from here, as an administrative team, we review the budgets functionally at a building level and at a functional level. We review those budgets and make changes as needed. And then we work on preparing the official first draft for board review to be presented at the preliminary hearing on March 2nd. Are there any questions? Comments?
Kate, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it possible for every board member to get a copy of this PowerPoint?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like sent to them? And I don't know. I mean, I would assume that everybody would like one. I would absolutely like one. I mean, when you're going over all this, and when I sat in for that meeting the other day, I was really blown away by some of the numbers that were coming forward, and seeing that if this kind of, getting rid of our reimbursable stuff, our transportation aid and all that, BOCES, that scares me. And then when you're talking about this COVID piece, and you're looking at some of the numbers, and like I said, we had a sheet presented to us for our district. I mean, the numbers in district areas are huge, and I don't know that how any district would find a way to come up with that money. You know, it's scary, and I'm fearful of it, but I know that anybody on the board can communicate with Mrs. Tokarczuk on a regular basis and ask her any questions that you have. I know I keep a book and a log of all kinds of different things that I find out are going on with this in our funding, and try really hard to get a hold of the powers that be to let them know what we need to have happen. And if you get a chance to reach out to the people that are representatives, to call them and talk to them and tell them what we need in our district and how this funding and the way that this rolls out affects us, it could help to make a difference. And we're probably going to, maybe, Mrs. Tokarczuk, if you think, need to make another push towards our community and let them know how these changes occur, so that when it comes time for a vote and for our budget to pass and go through, they'll be privy to all the knowledge that they need to know about what's changing and what's happening, because there's a lot going on.
Yes, you're right.
So I would appreciate it if you could forward that to the board members. And if anybody, does anyone have any questions? No?
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay.
Move on then to the financial
Yes, please.
on the agenda.
Yep.
Are the budget status report, the revenue status report, and the January 2021 outstanding checks and check register. I'd just like to note a couple items on the budget status report. You'll notice we have approximately 12% of our total budget is unencumbered or unspent available as of today. That's slightly higher than in the past, but to be expected given that our in-person activity is less, and those expenses that are more in-person driven are not occurring. And in the revenue status report, the big story in revenue this year is that 20% potential withholding of state aid, which the New York State Department of Budget has recently indicated they will be making that 20% whole by the end of the state fiscal year, which is March 31st. So that we are anxiously waiting on, and that is great news. So the financial reports are here for your approval.
Do we have to approve these, or they're just review? Aren't they just review?
They're review.
You're right.
Okay. Thank you. That's okay. That's okay.
The next item on the agenda is budget transfers. The budget transfer attached for your approval tonight is to utilize our state hardware funds to purchase instructional technology.
Okay. Can I have a motion, please, for the budget transfer approval?
I'll make
the motion.
Larry.
And a
I'll
second?
second Heather Dubard.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the budget transfers? No? Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Leary, a second by Mrs. DeBard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
The next item on the agenda is a capital project purchase. Your approval is recommended for the purchase of furniture and installation at the Union East Addition. As Mr. Vona notes, this furniture and installation comes in under budget in the Union East capital project. It's quoted by state and national contracts, and again, it's funded by the capital project.
Thank you. I like that when it comes in under budget. Thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions on this? Can I have a motion, please, for the capital project?
I'll make the motion. Heather
And I'll
Dubard.
second it. I have a motion by Mrs. DeBard, a second by Mrs. Wilson. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
The next item on the agenda is your approval of a contract for our capital outlay exception project. You'll remember this is our $100,000 annual project that we do work around the district. And this year's project focuses on mechanical work in the high school. And this is the winning bidder to perform that mechanical work.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, please, for this part of the capital outlay project?
I'll make a motion that Schaefer.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second Heather Dubard.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Dubard. Anybody have any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
The next item is your approval of transportation contract extensions. You'll remember in the summer, we discussed the possibility of going to a red, but after discussions, we have been able to secure contract extension at not to exceed CPI. So it looks like approximately 1.3% for next year, which is a huge win for the district to be able to keep our transportation costs so low for 2 years, or the growth so low for 2 years in a row, really helps us in terms of budgeting. So those contracts are presented for you here tonight.
Thank you. Yes, that is, that's huge for us, for our district. To stay below CPI, 1.3, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful. I appreciate that. All the hard work on getting that done. Can I have a motion, please, to accept the approval of the transportation contract extension?
I'll make that motion that Schaefer.
I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer and a second by Renee Wilson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried.
The next item on the agenda is your approval of a pilot agreement. So we can enter into agreements to for entities to its payments in lieu of taxes. And this particular project is called Angela's House, low-income senior housing in the former Villa Maria property. It provides the district with tax revenue of approximately $73,000 over the next 15 years. And your approval of this agreement is recommended.
Okay. Can I have a motion, please, for the approval of the pilot agreement for Angela's House?
I'll make the motion, Heather Dubard.
And a second, please.
I'll second it. Kevin Leary.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mrs. Dubard, a second by Mr. Leary. Any discussion on this?
I
All
got
in
one
favor?
question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ed, go ahead.
Is it 73,000 a year for 15, or is it 73,000 over 15 years?
It's 73 over 15.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
The next item is addendum number 2, bids and quotes for purchases over $20,000. The first item is the CDW quote. This is the purchase of the instructional software that the budget transfer was necessary for. This is $81,000 in in Chromebooks and $52,000 in smartboards.
Okay.
Mary, you take these together, or do you want me to keep going? I'm sorry, or you take them one at a time?
You can, why don't you do them one at a time?
Okay. Can I have a motion, please, for the smart boards and the smart floor stands, please?
I'll make a motion, Tom Raska.
And a second, please?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Raska, a second by Mrs. Dubard. Is there any questions or discussion on this? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
And the last item is for game time, and this is the approval of a playground at Union East, playground equipment at Union East. As Mr. Bonin notes in the memo, it's for 40 kids at a UPK safe playground and 40 kids at a grades 1 through 4 playground, turf and installation included for $320,000.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, please, for the approval of game time?
I'll make the motion, Heather Dubard.
And a second?
I'll second. Kevin Leary.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mrs. Dubard and a second by Mr. Leary. Any questions on this? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Tukarzak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oops.
Mrs. Morris?
I think we are all set for this evening. We do not need an executive session at this
Thank
meeting.
you. Can I have a motion, please, to adjourn the meeting at 8:09?
I'll make the motion. Kevin Leary.
And a second, please. I
I'll
have a
second.
motion. I have a motion by Mr. Leary and a second by Mr. Schaefer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Good evening, everybody. Stay safe and well.
Good
See
evening.
you soon. Take care.